I want to kick the conversation around what is data observability and why is it important?
Yeah, so I would say data observability is an organization's ability to see and understand everything that is happening. I like to think of it as a superpower. Basically, their data operations are usually complex. Data is moving in many places, is getting transformed, is being used. And basically, data observability gives you that understanding of how the data is moving from step to step, who's using it, are the right people using it? Are there data assets that the teams are preparing and that are not in use? Then all the aspect around health and quality of the data. Is the data that the company is preparing in good shape? Is it reliable for decision making? And data observability really enables an organization to get this understanding at scale in being able to detect any issues or anomalies or find opportunities for improvement together with the root cause so that the teams can be more proactive and get better control of their data operations. I want to add, oftentimes there's confusion with data monitoring, and some people like to think that the two things are the same thing. And really, monitoring is more specific and limited. Like a team can go and add a quality check on a column, or like, I want to make sure that this behavior is happening, or yeah, this column is not null. And so, like, while it is manual and it requires resources, on the other side, data observability is comprehensive. The idea is for it to be automated, and it runs at scale. Like, you shouldn't have to be thinking about something, but data observability is looking at everything that is happening and bringing this information to basically empower you and enable even the data organization to be data driven, which oftentimes it's something that we are not. Like data teams, we prepare a lot of assets and tables and ETL pipelines, and we just assume that it's great. And if we start talking about why is it important, and I can speak from my own experience, it's not uncommon that the reports and analysis that the teams are preparing oftentimes are the business stakeholders or the users or the business executives that are finding issues with that data. And that's such a bad experience for everyone in the organization. So data observability empowers you to be the first to know what's happening and build trust within the organization and the data team overall. So yeah, those are some of the things. Why else do you think it's important, Krishan?
When I was listening to you, I can see how you're going through your pain points in the career as a data engineer and the manager of a data engineering team. And I think I'm not going to look at it from data stack and the technology point of view, but I'd like to emphasize a couple of like definitions and the importance in the business aspect. Like, what is observability? Not the data observability, but as a concept. There was a monitoring, and now we are talking about observability. What is the definition of observability? So, looking at the output of a system and try to understand the current state of it is what we call observability. And because we don't want to spend too much resources by checking every single thing of every single parameter variable in a system, we just look at the output. What does this system generate? And then I try to understand what is going on in the system. This is the general definition of observability. It applies after physics or software. In the Specifically in data observability, we are looking at, just like you mentioned, the ETLs, the tables, what is going on in the upstream, downstream, and how we communicate what is going on in our data sets. If there's a problem or if something is performing maybe way better than we were expecting. And why do we need it? It is because of increasing the efficiencies. This I talked a lot during my time with the consulting and the data strategy time. We have to make the data as a part of corporate strategy. Every company needs data-driven decisions, and we need to obtain that data. But without knowing how to use data and which data is going to serve for what kind of goal, it is just we can run around without knowing what we are doing. Therefore, setting the goal, which is most likely it is going to be the corporate's ultimate goal, and then knowing where you are today and then set the direction. So understanding the current state is very important so that you can draw an arrow or short path or different trajectory, aiming for your ultimate goal. Understanding current state is very important. It is because it is going to help you to plan. You are going to be much more efficient. You are not going to be on the state of putting the fires around because you have a roadmap to execute. And I believe majority of the teams, software, data, try to perform in a very agile setting. And we are okay to change things around. But as you can imagine, and I believe this audience, the majority of this audience also would relate, we have things to build, things to ship, and the quality issues come in, quality issues that we thought we delivered it 100%. And in data is not something stagnant, something stable. Every day it's flowing and you cannot know. There might be millions of different reasons a data quality issue can raise per day. And to your point, Oksana, you said data observability provides you first to know privilege, but also we have the problem of what to know because we cannot know everything at the same time
Yeah.
and cannot. If we try to know everything as first, it is going to create some bottlenecks. And observability brings some solutions. I think with Constellation, we try to address those issues first. And I'm going to ask you, what does Constellation do
Yeah,
before
and
everything?
before I answer that, I want to address a question I see in the Q&A, and I think it relates back to your point of how of having the data strategy and knowing where you are. And the question is around what are the what's part of the journey that an organization takes to arrive at this data observability state we're talking about. And so I think every organization in some way is doing something, right? And it can be as little as or I guess the when data gets implemented in as part of the digital transformation, mostly you assume that the data assets you're preparing are correct, and the business starts leveraging that. And we basically call this do nothing, don't do much. You just assume and fly blind, and you don't even know what the quality is. And then organizations typically start evolving in this journey in getting more matured or to accomplishing data observability. So the next step is they typically start adding data quality checks. And this becomes a very manual process. And basically, teams have to think through, okay, what could go wrong and what are parameters to verify that this table is good. Then the next stage of that journey would be automated quality checks. Like basically, there's a standardized method of like how the teams will do it, how engineers will apply checks, and they all follow that. It's not so much of a mixture, but at least there's consistency there. And then the next layer, we really start entering data observability land, which is where all the detection the teams don't no longer have to think about these checks, but all this observability is happening automatically. Like that's a synonym. Like observability is automated, like it needs to happen on its own. And then no matter again, and I said this before, the scale of the data environment, these issues are being detected and served to the data owners. And then I guess tying it back to your other question of what Constellation does, it's really we really differentiate ourselves by prioritizing the list of issues so that we know not only show you everything that is wrong, but really take it to the next level around, okay, now serve me a prioritized list so I know what is the most important thing that I should do. And that's why you see right here under our banner, fix what matters. It's all around optimizing, not only serving the output, but optimizing that output so that the teams can really increase their efficiency. Like, really, Constellation is around detecting issues at scale, serving a prioritized list of incidents so that the teams can know where to start because of five things that could be happening at a given time. They know what is the most important thing that needs the attention. Yeah, is there something you want to add?
I want to say a couple of things on Navia's question. She's asking, where is data governance and how would data governance play role working with the vendors or who is going to access the data? And that kind of, I believe the core question here is the main goal of the data governance and how they take part in that space. I think data governance is more about um, applying the rule, literally governing what is going on, what the game is. It can be preset rules, and in most cases, data governance takes part of setting those rules as well. They take part in the committee. It's just like ruling a country with two different countries, and then they're sharing the same constitution. I remember I'm from Turkey, and Turkey adopted constitution from Switzerland in 1930s. It is the same rule, same constitution, but when you look at Turkey today and Switzerland, you see a huge difference between them, because some things are positive, some things are negative comparatively, but it is because the goals are different, the nature is different, the culture is different, and the data organization is living organization. So everything is changing differently. That's why I believe from one company's data governance structure is much more different than another. It is because of lots of moving parts around there. And what we are trying to do with Constellation, also giving some sort of clarity to data governance teams, giving some standard language. Oksana is going to talk about it, what kind of things we are standardizing and how you can talk the same language within the company. It starts with the definition of the column, the definition of the metric, but also it comes the definition of the incident and the definition of the data issue. And when you talk about the data issue, who is going to understand what exactly? Also, I believe a part of the governance, setting the rules and applying them, governing the environment. I think while we are doing this standardization, we are both enabling the data engineering teams by making their life easier, and then helping all the other teams, giving them, hey, this is what is written here, and I'm applying this rule, and we all agree on that, and how we are operating data based on these processes. And we are providing these scores, standards, and processes to Constellation users.
Yeah, and I want to add on the data governance. I think while there are data catalog tools out there that help you document basically your data definitions and ownership, which is also becomes very important as the organization grows, so you can even know who to go if there's something happening. The reality is all these tools also require people and processes that are internal to the organization for it to work. Like none of these tools you're going to plug directly into your data environment and they're going to work. So it's not like a vendor's responsibility to like suddenly make everything clear in your data landscape. It's a partnership. The vendor will provide the technology essentially to help your team, to enable your team to go through the data governance journey, but really there's a lot of involvement from within the organization to connect the right people that have the knowledge, that are the subject matter experts, to go through that process of governance. Yeah, similarly for Constellation to be implemented, we will be supported. We will support your team as well, so that it's a partnership of whatever incidents are critical to you. And that's something we're gonna see in with our machine learning algorithm that basically tunes to understand and adjust to the team's criticality. But it's something that requires or like gets improved by the teams using it, providing rating and feedback. And we're gonna see that when I dive into the demo, so that it's not like you plug Constellation and then you forget. Teams have to be actively also solving incidents. It's like we inform you what needs to be fixed, but the reality is the data teams have to go and implement those fixes themselves. So similarly, it's a combination of efforts between internal people in the organization and a commitment to improving data quality and having better reliability in data through the support of platforms like Constellation. I had one question that we didn't cover. So,
Yeah.
from a data executive perspective, why should they care about data observability?
I think, yes, it is another persona we are talking about, right? The data engineer, they are our warriors in the field. They go, they confront all the issues and then they fix things. But all these is happening under the supervision of the data executive. It is they are the people who are responsible for delivering the correct, accurate, timely reports, dashboards, data. And I think it is very important for them, the data observability. It is because if you don't have data observability, probably your investment that you made millions of dollars investment in data infrastructure, but your return on investment is about 50, 60%. It is because you keep using the same resources, the engineer, the data governance team, the quality team, by fixing things very reactive way. So it eats up from the roadmap because you have things to build and ship. But because of the data quality issues, you don't have enough time to do the actual strategic smart things. And also, you just waste your resources on the other hand, like extra cloud computing, storage, unnecessary tables, like orphan tables are flying around that a lot. And I believe data observability brings a big cost efficiency to the organizations. And since as entire planet in that state, the data is something very new and people haven't figured out how to monetize data in a stable way. So the data organization still is seen as the cost centers. The data executives, the primary focus in majority cases is not increasing the revenue, because even though it is the reality, you pay enough attention to your data, definitely your revenues are going to go up. But still, unfortunately, we see data organizations as a cost center. And the biggest benefit of observability to a data organization is creating the cost efficiency, cutting a lot of unnecessary cost that you are not aware of it.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to this thing. The more you observe, the more you identify. And so really employing any data observability will just again open your eyes on a lot of things that are happening. And so
Yep.
that's why some of these tools, like we are here to help. Then back to prioritization. Why should you fix? Why should you fix it? Because reaching perfection, it seems like a long goal and a hard goal to accomplish. And so that's why let's start with the most critical stuff.
But also, before jumping into that, well, I'm thinking about this. Like you said something very critical. I think it can be perceived very good and also as a disadvantage. The more you observe, the more data issues you are going to figure out. You are going to realize, to be aware of those. So it is great. That's wonderful. I'm going to be first to know all kind of these data issues out there, and I will be aware of more things. But eventually, the data teams are in a structure still human centered. We can only consume so much data. So the data observability comes with one disadvantage, which it is undeniable, the alert fatigue. So the more you observe, the more you identify. I think the crucial, most important step here is what to get notified about. Otherwise, you can say with a strong data quality, data reliability teams, organizations, and maybe you already are using some data observability tool, but you are swamped with all the alerts and you just want to,
Yeah.
most likely it is integrated with your email, Teams or Slack, and you keep receiving notifications. Oh, this is not important. This is not important. I don't want to receive this notification. And then after employing those tools, after implementing the data observability practices, you start to turn off those alerts and notifications because it becomes so overwhelming. With Constellation, we also address that problem because the prioritization is very important. That's why we say fix what matters. There is no way you can fix everything. There is so small probability that you will have 100% quality data at any given,
Perfect. Or like 100%
right?
perfect.
That's right. And it is an ongoing battle. Some issues is going to raise, some issues you are going to fix, but knowing what issues out there and knowing where to start is the most crucial thing when it comes to planning and increasing your efficiencies. So with that, I believe we can jump into demo and then we can show
Sure.
hands on.
Thanks. Okay. All right. Let me share my screen. and we'll get started here. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So when you log in into Constellation, the first thing you're gonna see is this prioritized list of incidents. We believe this is what you need. This requires the most attention, and we've developed this concept called criticality score, which is based on an ML model that will understand usage and business impact of your tables, and basically by comparing that with how good or how bad is the quality of your table, it will determine the score that basically the higher it is, the more critical the issue is. And so this is the part of incident generation. If I come to this one, for example, on the top of the list, I'm going to see, and this is based on a demo environment that we have, we're going to see there's 13 downstream tables that are potentially impacted by this issue. Constellation already has detected the root cause of this issue, which is this orders table. And I can and also see how is the quality flowing through the pipeline and what is potentially in more trouble based on the reliability score indicator that I will go in a moment. So with this, the teams have the ability to acknowledge the issue within Constellation or resolve it as a way to keep everyone in the same communication of what's happening. If I come to a lower incident, for example, the supply running quantity month, we see there's only one downstream tables, there's only 3 average daily queries. And so that's why it's a lower impact, but basically the score is worse. And that's why it balances out on the criticality score. The other one might have a bigger footprint of what's happening, and that's why we ranked it higher. However, we also give this ability to, if like the reality is we don't know if this table might be feeding the most important report or analysis that the CEO needs to look at every day. And that's why we also provide this ability to rate the score so that we can slowly continue learning about the team. And if this should have been way more critical because maybe, hey, it's just one table, but it's the most important table. Once the team submit that feedback, Constellation will continue learning so that the next time there's an issue with this part of the pipeline, this incident will be ranked a little bit higher. As you can see, we also have information about downstream usage, like how many queries are running daily across the impacted set. And so this gives the ability to acknowledge, everyone knows, okay, Oksana is working on this and or resolve it. We're soon gonna be having PagerDuty integration so that if that's what your team uses for acknowledging and basically informing what's happening, then that could also come there. If I go now to, okay, so let's take a bigger look to this issue. I can go to that table and see now what are some of the things we capture at the table level. From here, we can see like basic information. Okay, where's this data coming from? When was this asset created? When was it last updated? Okay. And then we can see up here this concept of table reliability score, which is another score. And now this is the second score I introduced, and we've done this on purpose to standardize how you refer and can compare assets, incidents as like apples to apples, right? The idea is that if you see 10 incidents, you quickly know which one is the most important. If I go back to like tables view here to all your tables, you can quickly know what is the worst thing that's happening. It is very common for, like in the past, I have seen where there's 10s or 20 indicators for a table and things high, low, and I don't even know what is worse. It gets really hard to compare. So the reliability score really summarizes that reliability of the table. And I'm going to speak about what are the components that make up that reliability score, which really speaks to some of the data observability pillars. So volume trend is the first one. Constellation will learn like the row count in your table and what's expected for this table. And once there's an anomaly, when something drops or it looks off from what is expected, that's going to be impacting the table reliability score. So that's the first component, and this is out of the box. The second one is around the landing time trend. Similarly, we're going to be looking at what time is this asset loading, either daily or hourly. And once they're like, if there's a delay, if there's usual delays with this asset, then that's also going to be impacting reliability. The data might not be fresh and you might be looking at a stale data set. And then lastly is the columns component, because tables are made up of columns, and every column can have itself some quality problems. And so there's multiple metrics we check at the column level, such as null percent trends and understanding, again, what is the expectation Constellation will learn? What is the expected null percent, or like what for a specific column? Because maybe some column is always 100% null. So that doesn't make it wrong. It's just this is what's normal in your environment. But once the what we capture is different from what we have learned, that will impact that column score. And similarly, min and max trends. And so if we see something off of what is typically expected, then the model will also lower the column score. So column scores, because they're all part of the table, they also go into this table reliability score. And for example, we can see here how supplier name is really low. Basically, there's been a lot of variance with null percent. And so that's likely a big thing that's impacting the table reliability score. If I go to the lineage, which is, I already showed you a little bit on the incidents page, you can also see how is the data coming into this table. And actually, if you see, this is where the issue began. And that's why the incident started with this table, because we've already detected the root cause for the issues here. And we can see there's another table downstream. I can navigate that. And basically, we enable the navigation across lineage very easy so that, yeah, you can see how data or issues are propagating across. There's also this ability to identify your incremental column in case that the table loads incrementally. If it's usually this is the case for fact tables or aggregate tables, so that we can use that column to start understanding better the daily trends. But for dimension tables, this won't necessarily apply. From this view, you can also see related incidents. I can come here and see 3 incidents happening on very different days. And then all these are impacting the table where I was coming from. Again, here we have the ability to see, has someone acknowledged, are these open incidents or where it is. And
Question, Oksana,
yes,
there's a question. How much historical data do you need to build a model? Why?
yes, usually we need 7 days of data to be able to get a little bit more precise on setting a baseline for your data environment. So once you set up Constellation, you're going to start seeing the stats immediately, because we're going to start getting them from day 0. But for us to start detecting some anomalies, it will require, at least 7 days.
Yep. One of the features we are relying on is plug and play. Once you connect your data set to Constellation, it takes about 45 seconds to see the stats. And based on those stats, something meaningful, usually depending on the volume, depending on the data model, usually it takes a week.
I forgot to cover this feature, which is not fully developed. We're in progress of working, but SQL monitors are intended to verify, and this is part of what the typical manual checks could be, but we want to automate them here so that they could also be feeding reliability scores and therefore incident generation. So monitors can go across a column. If you say this column should have values high, medium, low, or it should not be null, or nulls we already do by default, but it's or duplicates on a table. So the checks can be at the table or at the column level. And then with this, the data owners can control some of the other things that feed the reliability score. So if you do nothing, what I showed you comes out of the box. But if you want to start tuning reliability score, maybe for the most critical assets, you can start adding some more monitors on what are specific things you want Constellation to check. And back to the plug and play, or I guess the vision for a lot of what we've done here is to keep it simple. And that's why everything summarizes and I already talked about it, but I think it's so key, the concept of the scores. And the other aspect is we didn't want Constellation to be a burden for the team. Okay, I'm gonna add a connection and now I have to spend all this time setting it up to make this work and get something meaningful out of it. And that's where the concept of plug and play really comes. And to add a connection, right now we only have Snowflake and BigQuery support, but to add a connection, essentially, we work with you so you can create a service account in this example, And then you basically go through the setup of what that looks like to add it. And then once it's there, you can specify, okay, what do you want to cover? What do you want to observe through Constellation? And we give you flexibility for that, as well as at what time should we be syncing the data. There's also an ability to sync at any time. If, for example, you resolve an incident or something is wrong, something off happened, and you just want to sync now to refresh everything in Constellation, we can also do that here. And so that's simply really what the setup looks like. And then you start getting all the stats and incident generation automatically. And last, I'm going to touch on the home tab, which is really more for to get okay, now 12,000 foot view of what's happening across and how are we doing. So here you can see open incidents and percents, like are they being acknowledged or are they still remaining in new? What's the incident trend over day? What's open versus what's closed? Is my team resolving enough incidents, or do we have a really big backlog of incidents? And then lastly, like how quickly are teams acknowledging and resolving? And again, we're also calling out what if it's really critical or not. If you see, oh, it's very high, but they're all green, it's okay. You might not really care, but ideally, you don't want to see red incidents that are like highly critical incidents that are remaining unsolved. And we also worked on this or provide this ability to understand most problematic tables, which really gives insight into what is wrong with my environment, what is failing constantly, what's a cause of time that my team is taking in solving issues or constantly failing, constantly having problems. And we rank this and give you the top 10 as well as how it's changing over time. So if the team is spending time fixing a table, then you can likely see the table go off the list. And so if I go, for example, to this line item table, I can see like it's had all these drops on like it's had bad quality consistently. So what something is off and maybe this can get prioritized to basically remove this noise from the team. I think that's all for the demo. I just wanted to call out also the ability to ignore an incident. If you feel like, oh, you know what, I see this issue, but there's no usage here, there's no downstream, I really don't need this. You can completely ignore the incident, it disappears. And that's something with time we would also learn about so that we don't create incidents that are becoming noise for you. So every action that is taken on incident management is also becoming learning for Constellation to better serve incidents that matter to you.
I just want to pull you towards a little bit more on the criticality score. When we look at how this space evolved from monitoring towards data observability and then handing over everything to the incident management, everything starts with making things automated. Okay, monitoring, postmortem, something happened. Let me see what happened. Try to identify it, try to understand what the incident is, and then come up with a design for the solution. And then you go and implement. And one step advanced version of this is, I believe, custom checks. You just go and specifically monitor a specific area and then bringing the common language into space, like making the checks standard. The one type of check means the same thing across the org. This is this.
Right.
And why are we doing criticality score, Oksana? What is this standardization of the score, scoring the incidents? How does it help to data engineers
Yeah.
operate on
Um,
that?
yeah. Criticality score really helps bring, if we touch upon governance again, it brings common understanding on why is something a priority and why the team should be spending time on something. It brings a common rating, a common score, yes, of urgency that everyone can relate on. If I am the data engineer on call and I'm fixing the green incidents, that's probably like a red flag, right? Like I should likely be spending my time in what is worst. And again, that's why the continuous learning of what is important to the business. But really, criticality score helps if you have, and we like to think of issues as stars, and it goes back to the name constellation. But if you have a sky full of stars, then which one is the brightest one that you should look? And again, this is a very small environment where we have 6 issues. The reality is teams could be having tens or even hundreds of incidents across all the data teams. And so, how do we know what stands out and what is likely going to be catching the executives' eyes if it's not fixed on time? And so, it's really bringing common understanding to why the team is spending time on something.
So it's like a little bit more like data engineers proof to show something because I experienced it, right? There are multiple issues. And then with the hippo driven environment, some executive can come and become louder than the others so that the incident that impacts their business more would be solved first. Its importance. So the engineering team especially suffers from that. Hey, why did you solve this first? Why are you getting so late to implement this solution? Where is my backfill? That kind of questions create some chaos and it costs to data engineering team trustworthiness. And I
Yes.
standing up the data engineering teams and then building the trust around them by starting letting them to know first before the stakeholder and then giving them a reason, giving them a playbook about, hey, I'm working on this. It is because of, hey, look at the criticality score. This is really important for the business. This is going to help us to engineering teams to communicate better among the teams and up and down within the organization.
And while, again, automatically doing this prioritization based on data, it's not if someone yelled louder, it's really that's why we have all the downstream impact, like everything that is happening downstream, how many queries are potentially impacted. And like it's an objective way of proving this is why this is important and why we have to do it first without if we didn't have this, basically I don't know, a program manager would be looking through backlog of issues and just making a random decision of what to do next or like what to prioritize, what should the on-call engineer even look at. So here we just automate all of it.
Perfect. We have 10 minutes left. I want to leave it to question and answer. We received a couple of questions during the demo and before as well, but maybe there might be people waiting for the presentation and this is the question and answer time. If you have any, if not, we can give 10 minutes back. Cool. Thank you so much, everyone, joining us today. We will follow up. You will most likely receive some follow-up email if you register to Zoom. Anyways, we would love to stay in touch. We continue to learn in the space, continue to learn about data quality issues and data engineers' life. And we try to prioritize those problems among in our solution. Please let us know if you have any feedback, if you have any request. We would be happy to take a look at deeper. And if we have the answer already, we would happy to share. And if we don't have the answer, let's find a way to find a solution together. Thank you so much.
Thanks all for spending this time with us.
Bye.